All right, Nick, let's talk about Jackson State. Obviously, you and I both went to an FCS school. We went to the Citadel. So we're a little bit more familiar with a team like Jackson State than some other people might be. But it seems as if Jackson State is pulling out all the stops, so to speak, to try to keep, young phenom coach Deion Sanders, maybe not so young, but young as in his coaching career,
Yeah.
who came and took Jackson State and took the SWAC by storm, kind of. He's got a really hot 5-0 start to the season. Obviously, he's kept this team in contention ever since he's been there. His son has been playing at an incredible level as well for the school, but they really want to keep him there, and we got the story on this one. But Nick, I want to ask the Jackson State fans, obviously got a lot of great players out there. Who's been your MVP of the season so far? Who's a player that's really stood out for your team? Let us know in the comments below. But Nick, let's get into the story about Deion Sanders and Jackson State.
Yeah, so obviously you brought it up. Deion Sanders has taken, I would argue, not just the SWAC world, the Jackson State University world by storm, but all of college football by storm. It looks like the community in Jackson is starting to do everything they can to keep Deion Sanders there. So this is first reported in Outkick.com. I'm going to read here from the article a little bit. So political leaders in Jackson, Mississippi are doing everything possible to keep Deion Sanders in town. The Tigers are currently 5-0, like you said, and speculation is swirling that multiple major Power 5 teams might be interested in Sanders' services. While JSU definitely can't match the salaries of traditional powers, the city is trying to upgrade the facilities to woo him into staying. Which, by the way, I think that's not going to be an issue. I think Deion is obviously very wealthy with his time in the NFL as an analyst and endorsement. So that's a feather kind of in Jackson State's cap that they can hold on the fact on, is that Deion Sanders isn't looking to climb and make more money and potentially at a big Power 5 Division I school. But back to the story. I'm sorry. The city council in Jackson approved a resolution backing a new football stadium for the Tigers during a Tuesday night meeting, according to WLTB. This is according to Ward 3 Councilman Kenneth Stokes said, maybe if we can show as a state that we are committed to him staying into the new stadium, maybe it would help encourage him to stay. Although there doesn't appear to be any new timeline for when a new stadium could be built, there's reports that this is just a big gesture. Obviously, they want to build a stadium to really try and show Deion that they want to keep him in the state and at the school. All right, Maya. So obviously, I think it's an obvious move, but it definitely is a smart move by the city of Jackson, the Jackson State community, and frankly, the state of Mississippi. Because the fact of reality is Deion Sanders has taken this program and made it national. It's undeniable the force he's done. You see documentaries, you see, weekly shows about this program, and they're playing at an extremely high level. They're one of the best teams in FCS. If depending on how you could look at the rankings and polling, FCS is a little different than FBS. They could probably be really up at the top of a lot of the powers like North Dakota State and schools like that. They certainly have the top flight talent with the recruits Deion Sanders has brought in. But I love the fact that Jackson is pulling out all the stops and saying, hey, Deion, we love what you're doing. We want to keep you here. Because obviously Deion Sanders, the calls are coming behind him, whether it's Auburn, maybe Florida State, right? If he wants those jobs, they could potentially be there for him. I don't think he really wants them. I think he loves what he's got at Jackson State. He doesn't need the notoriety because he obviously has had it before because he's Deion Sanders. He's prime time. But I do think it's a smart move by the community there in Jackson, doing everything they can. Every gesture helps to keep him in the state, keep him in the community, keep him in the school. What are your thoughts on this?
So when I think of Deion Sanders coaching, I think when I see him as a coach, he's a motivator of men. I think he's a great
Yeah,
role model for these kids.
100%.
I think he's a great, he's been there. All these guys.
This isn't a career move for him. This is
No,
a service.
passion project.
Yep.
He comes in, all these young kids come to the school and like, Deion, how do we get to the NFL? How do we do this? How do we do that? We know you're the best. We want to know, how do you do this? And he's just a really great role model mentor. He may not be the tactician or, football genius mind of like a Saban or somebody like that, but he's done an excellent job at Jackson State. And I think, what more gratitude can you get? What more fulfillment can you get from being at a school like this, being a big role model to this community, trying to get this program up and running even more, maybe win them a title or something like that. I think if I was Deion, that's what I would do, is stick with it and try to get this school a title, try to get them to the highest level, and then maybe you think about moving on. But I don't think it's time yet. Like you said, there's some people whispering stuff like that, but does he really want to do that? I don't think he won't have as much control at these bigger schools as he does at Jackson State. He could probably do whatever he wants, and nobody's really going to question him, personnel or coaching wise, don't you think?
Well, and he's beating these big schools at their own game. He's out recruiting them. He's poached some of their recruits, right? So one of the advantages, one of the reasons why young coaches try and go through the ranks to go FCS to maybe Sun Belt to eventually Power Five, depending on how it shakes out, is that eventually they want to go to a school where they can recruit the best athletes, the 4 or 5 stars, onto their football team. Deion has shown he can already do that at Jackson State. Obviously, he's not getting the same level as in Alabama, for an example, but he is getting elite level prospects to come to Jackson. So it's not like he has that advantage going for him. And there are stories about Deion Sanders, obviously at the height of his playing days, at the height of his wealth and popularity. He's come out and talked about that. He has had some mental issues, had some bouts with depression and things like that. So I think for him, he recognizes the important things aren't necessarily reaching the pinnacle of wealth, of fame and prestige, of being the head coach of, say, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Auburn, whatever it may be, whatever he's linked to, rumored to, in the college football rumor mill. I think he wants, and you hit the nail on the head, he wants to be of service to these young men and be a leader to these young men and really create winners and champions in his own way, in his own style, doing it at Jackson State. So I don't think Deion Sanders ever leaves personally. I think he is here at Jackson State for the long term until he's done coaching.
Yeah, and the last point I want to bring up is obviously Deion Sanders is with Barstool Sports. He does a number of shows with them. And I want to bring up something that shows me personally how much Deion Sanders loves coaching this Jackson State team. I remember last year, Deion got hurt. He actually got surgery on his foot or his leg, or ankle or foot. I can't remember what it was. The injury is not the important part. But for a number of weeks, he got surgery and he's kind of out of commission. He was on a scooter for a while. He didn't show up to a couple of his obligations with Barstool, notably to film some shows. But you know what he did do? He was still on the sidelines at Jackson State coaching.
Not in the booth.
Yeah. He was in the boot on the little scooter riding around the sidelines. He wouldn't miss a game with Jackson State for the world. So that just shows me his love and his commitment to the school and the team, and most importantly to the players. And I really admire that.